There we are. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's been a month. Brandon was just telling us behind the scenes that it's been 2 months for him, probably. So it's been a long time. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But Brandon, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, feels good to be back. I think
Awesome.
I missed our last stand up in February due to COVID. So this is only my second time hanging out with you guys on the stand up this year, but feels good to be
Yeah,
back.
crazy, crazy. And we just had the other stand up. The one that nobody basically watches. Everyone watches this one. The regular .NET Maui stand up thing. And it's just 1 month until like GA Maui is released and all the things are there. So I guess that kind of also means that the community toolkit has to kind of like catch up, and we're gonna have a real release soon as well. Um, so we skipped last month's because there's a lot going on in the world, especially around the Ukraine area, and our great friend Vlad is living in the Ukraine. So I'm kind of like I can't even start to imagine what must be going on there right now. And besides the regular talk about our boring project, at least compared to whatever's happening there. We've been keeping in touch with Vlad, of course, and it's just crazy that he's just been working on this regular stuff, and he's just here with us right now. So, Vlad, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you're staying well, you're keeping safe.
Yeah, hello everyone. As you can see, I'm not in my usual workplace because of the air threat that was just announced. And there are also destructions and casualties in the city because I'm at a distance of 100 kilometers of the front line. But a person gets used to many things, and I'm not
Yeah,
longer so frightened by the sound of sirens and raw explosions. But
crazy.
it's very difficult in Ukraine, in the country, and inhuman treatment of civilian population by the Russian occupiers are very worrying. But however, thanks to our armed forces, we believe in victory in this war, and special thanks to all those who support Ukraine.
Great. Thank you so much. Of course, I'll be honest, and this is me personally speaking. It feels kind of weird to have you on here and then talk about things that are probably not really important. But on the other hand, I can kind of imagine that a distraction for you can be nice as well. So, I guess we're just gonna do pretend that everything's normal and nothing is happening. But that's definitely not how I and I think we feel about any of this. So I just want to have that clear for everyone. Again, thank you, Vlad, for being here. It's really amazing. Pedro, how are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's pretty hot here. So it's
Yeah, it's
first time
warm. It's
this year that
Brazil. Yeah,
it's not raining. All other stand-ups was raining, and now, yeah,
yeah, it's
it's
true.
Brazil, it's summer. So yeah,
Great,
I
great, great.
think it's not summer anymore, but it's still hot.
Ah, well, it's so sunny always, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who cares what season it is? All right, great. So, well, let's talk about the thing that we're actually here for, because one of the things that we did really recently is release a new version of the Xamarin Community Toolkit. So that's kind of like the current stable version of all the things that we are doing. Um, so we did a little release of that, and oh, right, and the Maui compat. Yeah, I'm kind of distracted. I'm trying to see what Brandon's doing here, so sorry about that. So Brandon has put the release notes up on screen, and we did a couple of bug fixes, and also I was kind of thrown off because it says .NET Maui Preview 14 support, but we also still have the Maui compat version. So just to reiterate a little bit of all the versions that we have right now is the Xamarin Community Toolkit, which will work and continue to work for Xamarin Forms. Then we have the Xamarin Community Toolkit Maui Compat one, which has everything the Xamarin Community Toolkit has today, but is compatible with .NET MAUI through the compatibility layer that they have in there. And we're working on the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, which is like, surfacing .NET MAUI. It uses the handlers instead of the renderers, and that is like the truly .NET MAUI version. But that doesn't have like all the features that the Xamarin Community Toolkit has right now. So, but with all these variations, you should have everything covered basically, whether you're using Xamarin Forms or .NET MAUI. So that's basically the story that we have right now. A couple of bug fixes here. We're planning to also support, just like Xamarin Forms, the Xamarin Community Toolkit for a long time after .NET MAUI goes GA, so at least a year, I think. So definitely don't worry about that. And that's also why we have a couple of the bug fixes here. So, I mean, all the bug fixes are great, but I'm just scanning over this, and it's not anything majorly, and that's also why we have like the minor little bump from version 2.0 to version 2.0.1. Just a couple of crashes, which are definitely nice to have, but other than that, new version, go check it out, basically. Does anyone have anything to say about this? I don't think so. You're all nodding and being like, yeah, this is amazing. So, okay, let's just go to the next one. Then we have the Maui Community Toolkit, which is, of course, also very exciting. So, Brandon, maybe you have a little thing to share about the upcoming release candidate and general availability version?
Yeah, so we hinted at it a little bit in the intro, but to fill everybody in, we plan to follow the same release schedule for the toolkit that .NET MAUI will be following. So we've kind of always followed their lead, and we'll be doing that with the release candidate coming up soon. So the .NET MAUI team is currently working on their release candidate, which we'll guess is maybe going to come out next week, but sometime this month. And shortly after .NET MAUI pushes out their release candidate, we will update our repo, fix any breaking changes, and push out our release candidate. And at that time, the toolkits will go into a feature freeze. So we'll be fixing bugs, but we won't be necessarily adding or changing any APIs until .NET MAUI GAs, which scheduled for next month. And again, shortly after .NET MAUI GAs, we'll release the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit out of preview as well. So we're going to have about a month and a half of a feature freeze. So if you do open up any proposals or pull requests, we'll let you know. We'll leave a comment and just say, hey, FYI, we're in a feature freeze right now, but this looks good, and we'll merge it in once we can. And during that time, us, five of us, Sean's not here this week. He's on vacation. So enjoy the mojitos by the beach, Sean.
Maybe I should.
Which is, it's funny because a lot of this, we're going to be praising Sean for the awesome work he's been doing on the docs. But right, so the five of us, speaking of docs, we'll be focusing on updating all the documentation. We have done a really good job of writing unit tests. We have, I think, 82% code coverage in the MAUI Community Toolkit, and gosh, somewhere in the high 90s for the Markup Community Toolkit, MAUI Markup. But we could write a couple more unit tests during the feature freeze. And I know there's some cool projects that Vlad and Pedro have been looking into that we'll chat about later in the stream, but things that we can do to improve the samples, improve the toolkit, improve our architectures, without necessarily touching any or adding any new APIs. So stay tuned. As soon as the .NET MAUI RC and GAs come out, give us a day or two, and then we'll get our releases out to match and stay locked in step with .NET MAUI.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good track record until now, like the day or 2 days indeed, like whenever, because until now, and hopefully that should stabilize as well. And we're kind of like following the same release, right? And the releases after GA should be like, the next November, basically. So after that, it will slow down a little bit. But until now, we had to recompile against the latest version of .NET MAUI because there was still some breaking changes and whatnot. So yeah, we're definitely catching up, recompiling the thing, fixing issues that might arise from that, and then releasing our version as well. So, we are close to the .NET MAUI team because I'm on it. We stay in close touch, and we're definitely aware. So yeah, that's really amazing. And I think that's a nice bridge to definitely the stuff that Sean has been doing, because we now also have published docs for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So we had docs, we still have docs for the Xamarin Community Toolkit, and a lot of people have rightfully pointed out that it was nice, the stuff that we kind of had, but it wasn't complete and we needed more. And well, there was, we did it, but it could have been better. And now for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, we're planning to definitely do better. And also together with this, we combined forces with like I'm very honest here. I don't know what the right terms are now, because we had the Windows Community Toolkit, which is now Community Toolkit. Is that now the .NET Community Toolkit, or is that a different thing? Brandon, help me out here.
So yeah, here, let me go back in the URL here, because if we zoom out, yeah, we have
your screen. You unshared your screen for some. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
I accidentally hit the lock screen button on
Oh.
my keyboard. But you ever do that on a Mac? Like that I have the touch bar. I have the little lock screen button there, and sometimes I'll go to hit the like backspace key, and I'll accidentally lock my screen. So we're back. So if we zoom out of the URL a little bit, and I'll share this one in the comments too. So if you go to docs.microsoft.com/.net/community toolkit, you'll see all of the community toolkits. And this was one of the big org designs that we did when we first kicked off the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, because like Gerald just mentioned, there was a whole Windows Community Toolkit that existed for, like 6 or 7 years before the Xamarin Community Toolkit even existed. And shame on us, we didn't know about it, but we've learned quickly. And so when we had the opportunity to create this new toolkit for .NET MAUI, we said, let's do things right and let's join forces. And so part of that is consolidating all of the docs. So we're bringing all the docs together for all of the community toolkits. And here's where you'll find the .NET MAUI community toolkits, which probably excites us the most. But I also want to give a shout out because we have these .NET community toolkits. These are UI agnostic, so you can use them with any UI framework you want. These are just targeting .NET. They're not necessarily targeting MAUI or Windows or iOS specifically. And things like the MVVM toolkit, which is one of the toolkits in the community toolkit family, it's incredible. They're currently working on a version 8.0 release, which is available in preview today. We are using the MVVM toolkit in our sample app, in the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit sample app, and it's incredible. There's so many cool things coming. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but all that boilerplate code that we have to write around iNotify property changed and iCommands and making sure properties are observable, all that's basically taken care of for you with the MVVM toolkit. So highly, highly recommend the MVVM toolkit for anybody building new apps going forward in C#, period. But especially for our .NET MAUI family, because a lot of the MVVM stuff that existed in the Xamarin Community Toolkit can be found here. So if you're looking for things like async commands, this is where you can find the async commands. And so the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit focuses on MAUI. So if it doesn't have MAUI in the namespace, we can't bring it into the toolkit, but it exists. It's part of the MVVM toolkit. But anyways, the docs. This was a huge effort. This was actually about a year in the works. I think I opened up the work request last March or last May, 2021, and been working together with the docs teams, and you had to work with the marketing teams, the legal teams, all these different teams inside Microsoft came together so that we got docs, and we are still finishing them up. They'll be done before GA next month, but you can already see all these here in the table of contents, like how to get set up, docs on our alerts like snack bar and toast, and behaviors and converters, C# markup extensions for our Maui.markup repo. Just feels really good. It feels like we're finally official because we're on the official docs.microsoft.com website.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, okay, that's a lot of information to process. Yeah, so that's really cool. And to come back to like what Sean has been doing, because he has been really spearheading like this initiative. Of course, this is a lot of Microsoft initiative accounts that need to be set up and whatnot. But Sean really took it upon himself to write a lot of this. We had some already in Examine Community Toolkit. He converted all of that to what you can see here, and he's doing a great job at finding a great structure for all of this, making sure that has this unified look and feel. All the information is presented in kind of like a unified way. He also found some help in the community. Clifford, our coding pilot, he is. I think his regular day job is being a commercial airline pilot, but he also codes in Xamarin, that really blows my mind. But so he had nothing to do in between flights, I guess, and he offered to write some docs as well. So that's definitely something you, the watcher, can do as well. Like it's the community toolkit, so both in code, both in documentation, both in other ideas, please contribute your amazing stuff as well. So we have this docs. At this time, it's also still a work in progress, but I think we're definitely getting there, and it's shaping up very nicely. So yeah, Sean, keep up doing a great job, and we'll be seeing a lot more docs, and hopefully it will be helpful to you to get started with our little toolkit and also the other toolkits as well. Because especially the MVVM toolkit has some really amazing stuff. So go check that out. All right, I think then it's time for a couple of discussions. I see a couple of nice things on our list. Let's start with one by Vlad. I can only assume the generic converter for parameter, which has a very spooky name. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's look.
As for this suggestion discussion, Brandon already made a awesome pull request and implemented part of it with a base converter from TIG2. And my suggestion is to extend it with additional parameter where we can avoid converting from object to our specific time and directly using our predefined parameter. Where we can actually use it, it can be used, for example, here in double to int converter, where we receive the object and then convert it to the specific type, to double, to string, etc.
Can you zoom in a little bit, Vlad?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Maybe and
one more.
Yeah, one more. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. And for example, here in enum to bool converter, where we still receive an object parameter and then we cast it to the specific parameter. So my suggestion, just to avoid this casting, we can use generic type and avoid using object and specify the specific type which we can use here.
Yeah, this is a good one. So this is definitely an internal thing. So you won't likely see this class, the base converter class, unless you are either contributing to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, or you can leverage it for your own converters. Absolutely. But yeah, so like Vlad mentioned, we have a base converter where we do some type safety, some type checking on, and the benefit of that is because we found a lot of our converters were just rewriting the same code over and over. So converters in, I think it's a .NET thing. I don't think it's specific to MAUI. They just use generic, like it's an object. So you just pass in any parameter you want. It's always just an object. But then when you create your converter, you have to make sure that they passed in the correct object. And if it's not the right type, then you have to throw an error in. So base converter allows us to put all of that type checking code in there, so that when anybody like yourselves from the community want to create your own converter, it's super easy. Just a couple lines of code. You don't have to worry about all this type checking like we have here. But yeah, basically what this would do is extend it to also include a type checking for parameter. And I mean, I think it makes sense. All the ones where we don't use a parameter, because not every converter uses a parameter, we could just default that to object or ignore it. But I don't know. What's everybody think? How's everybody feel about converters?
Yeah, Pedro, how do you feel about it?
To be honest, I don't like too much because of the boxing thing, but this one will help developers to do like strongly typed checking and use better the compiler resources, So to me, it's a great addition.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those things. It's not, depending on what excites you, it's maybe not super exciting. It's really useful though. It's definitely, like you say, like it's good to have. People should make use of it, and it really just deduplicates the code and people doing things over and over again, checking the types, like you said, and whatnot. So yeah, I would say what's not to like.
Yeah, I'd say, Vlad, since you're running the screen, are you able to jump over to, I don't know, maybe one of the color converters, just show off the code that's using a base converter, because it really, let's see. So this one, oh no, it's not going to let you click it. Hey, sometimes that works in GitHub, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, but, I don't know what the...
Wow.
See, for that one it works. For the other one it doesn't. Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, what should I click?
I mean, I just wanted to show off. Yeah, like the color converters are literally one line of code, and that I think is the big benefit to doing things like this, because then future PRs, if somebody comes along and says, "I want to do a string to object converter," I don't know, I want to make a new converter, then yeah, there you go. So like line 24, 25, like that's just one line of code. Whereas if we didn't have the base converter, then we'd have to put all the like the null checking in here. We have to do the argument exceptions and all the validation stuff here. So,
and you would do that for every converter over and over again, right?
And then we have to maintain it.
Yeah. And we don't like to work. So that's why
we are lazy.
Yeah, so that's basically, one of those things that is, from a technical standpoint, very useful. But, on the outside, you won't see a thing from it. So, but definitely. So what was I think, Vlad, you started with that. This is partially implemented, which means that oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's implemented by Brendan in this pull request, where he added a base generic converter, like this one. And after that, I proposed to add an additional parameter to extend the object.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, and that's the thing that we still need to do then, or that's already in there as well.
As for base converter, it's already implemented and merged. As for object, it needs to be added.
Okay.
Yeah, so Vlad would be adding another type. So right now we have T from, we have T2, and then we would add another one. Yeah, T param, T parameter.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
And I think it's really good timing too. Like we were talking about going into the feature freeze. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff under the hood. And so we've got a perfect window to do it right now too. Well, shortly. We got to get drawing view merged.
Oh, yeah, that's everyone is loving that one, I think. All right. So anyone wants to talk about this one? I think we've said everything there is to know. We're going to do a little bit of maintenance, get that param thing in there, make everyone's lives easier, especially ours. So that's good. All right, Brandon, there is another thing on how to handle NET 6.0 only code.
Yeah. Let's bring my screen back. I think it's this one.
I think that kind of has to do with, well, I'll let you do the talking.
So, Yeah, here, I'll drop the link in our chat too for folks who want to follow along. So if anybody takes a look at the source code for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, you'll see real quickly that we're using a single project with multi-targeting, and almost all of our files end in .shared.cs. .shared just means it's compiled for every platform. So when we click compile to generate our NuGet package or DLLs for you, .shared is included in the Android, the iOS, the Mac Catalyst, the Windows, all the DLLs. You can almost think of it as like a shared project if you ever use shared projects back in the day. So this is all great. And we also have a lot of other code that you can say .ios.cs, and you could say snackbar.android.cs and snackbar.windows.cs. And like you can probably guess, those files are only compiled for those specific platforms. Okay, so what that means is we have shared, which is compiled for every platform, including .NET 6. We have Android, which is only compiled for Android. We have ios.cs, which is only compiled for iOS, and .windows.cs, which is only compiled for Windows. But what if we have code that only is going to run on .NET 6? So what we're doing right now, we have this kind of a bit of a janky workaround where we say just, hey, if this code isn't for iOS, Android, Mac Catalyst, or Windows, then we know it only runs on .NET 6. So the discussion, let's see, did I actually propose a solution in here? Oh, I did. Okay, good. So yeah, the proposal I put forth was we would just support one more file type called .net.cs. And we haven't done it yet. And because the only concern I have is, you know, how will this affect .NET MAUI apps that aren't using single projects? So like if you think about how we make apps for Xamarin, we typically have a .NET Standard project, and that is referenced by a separate project for Xamarin iOS and a separate project for Xamarin Android. And what we would do is we would have to add a NuGet package like Xamarin Forms into every project. So the .NET Standard project, the Xamarin iOS, the Xamarin Android projects. And I don't know, so I could be totally wrong about this, and I would actually be really happy to be wrong. But my concern that I highlight here is, what if somebody builds and architects their .NET MAUI solution like that, where they have a .NET 6 project and then a separate project for iOS, separate project for .NET 6 on Android? If we specify that a file only runs in .NET 6, then would that code ever be deferred down to the iOS implementation, for example? So that's the only concern I have. And I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this, or if we should just need to play around with it first. But other than that, I think doing this makes a lot of sense, and adding just support for star.net.cs file types. But I didn't want us to jump to it and push anything out and completely break everything for
no, for sure. So I don't know the answer. Let's start with that. Yeah, nice experiment. And you said like it's probably not going to be common, but it kind of depends on how popular the upgrade assistant is going to be, I guess, because the upgrade assistant will upgrade your Xamarin Forms apps to .NET MAUI apps, but it will not convert it to single project. So if you're going to go that route, then you will end up with a .NET MAUI app, which will still have like the structure that you just mentioned, have one shared project and then all the heads for each platform. So yeah, it will be a nice experiment to do this. The other question I kind of have is this specific to us? Because I think I already saw other people kind of like mentioning problems like these as well, who are trying to kind of like build a library. So is this something that we can also maybe solve on a higher level, where more people can kind of benefit? Because I think what happens, right, is for .NET MAUI, this stuff is built in, right? This is how the core, basically, how the single project works. It scans for those kind of patterns in the file names, and it compiles the right things. So that's kind of like baked into the whole build system. So instead of just doing this for us, it might have use to do it in kind of like, I don't know, just thinking out loud here, but yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is something that would also just be totally internal, and another good feature freeze project that if we want, I could take this on during our feature freeze, play around with it, because I can generate a NuGet package, add it to a sample app, and make sure things work how we expect them to work. But because this is kind of a big thing, definitely want everybody to chime in and let's
But
fix
what is
stuff before we break stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. We're not going to invent a solution and then come up with the problem, right? But what is kind of like, I don't know, maybe you described it here. What is a example of something that would run on just .NET stuff then?
Yeah, so I have an example here from, and it all started in the snack bar.
Okay.
But yeah, in snack bar, we had, well, these are now getting updated to show platform to align with .NET MAUI's move from the use of the word native to platform to be more specific about where it's coming from. But anyways, to show the snack bar on each platform, we call these methods, and these methods actually live in a different partial class specific to Android. So if you go and look at snackbar.android.cs, you'll see this method, and that's where we can show you the actual native Android snack bar. But let's say we are unit testing the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, like we do. We have a whole unit test project. That unit test project only targets .NET 6. And so for our unit tests, we had to add in this method on just .NET 6. So if there is no iOS, Android, Windows target, so that we can write our tests for the snack bar. So, so yeah, like this workaround works, but oh gosh, I think it was Pedro's pop-up that really showed how janky this workaround is, because in pop-up, so like here in snack bar, this is what, 10 lines of code, not a big deal. In pop-up, we have like 100 lines of code, and it's like, this should really be in its own file. And that's kind of what sparked this discussion. So it is kind of a selfish argument for us maintainers about how we can architect and write our code a little bit better and more concise. But also, yeah, like you said, Gerald, it should also help guide other library creators, and they can, if we figure this out, they can leverage our implementation.
That's step one. All right, so this is work in progress. We're getting back to this. We'll let you know how it all works out, if this is going to happen. But yeah, this is amazing stuff. All right, cool. So what else do we got? Vlad talking about people who are spearheading things within our project. So we kind of like divided a couple of things, and so that we kind of all have our own responsibilities. And Vlad is the master. He's doing great stuff on the MAUI compat things, because what we're doing there is replacing all the namespaces and doing all kinds of other magic. It involves a lot of steps. I think we have it documented somewhere, again, for other library creators to kind of benefit from that as well, if you want to do kind of the same thing that we're doing. But Vlad, I see something about the future of MAUI compat, and we currently have no Windows support. So what's the thing that you want to say about that?
Yeah, so for now, MAUI compat is work only on and built actually on macOS version, and it uses magic script MAUI compat, which, as Garrett mentioned, convert all our Xamarin Community Toolkit to MAUI compat package. But what is the issue we faced with Windows? In Xamarin Community Toolkit, it's a UWP solution, but with MAUI, it's a WinUI. And because of this, I found the small table where, let me zoom again. You can see some features are not ready for WinUI release, and one of them is Ink Canvas, which we used for drawing view. That is why we are not ready to migrate all our controls, which we have in Xamarin Community Toolkit, to MAUI compat package. And that is why for now we excluded our Windows build from MAUI compat package. And main question which I have right now, should we add a partial compatibility and migrate only only features which we can to MAUI compat package, or we exclude it from release for Windows at all, at least for now?
It's a good question. And well, to just give some background to folks who maybe you haven't heard of MAUI compat yet. If you have an existing Xamarin app that uses the Xamarin Community Toolkit and you want to port that to MAUI, your first step should be to just remove the Xamarin Community Toolkit NuGet package and replace it with xamarin.communitytoolkit.maui compat, because it's essentially us just copy pasting that code and replacing the Xamarin Forms namespaces with Microsoft.maui. But like Vlad's pointed out, it only works for iOS and Android right now. Maybe Mac OS? I forget.
Yeah,
but
it's using Mac at least, right?
Nice. But it definitely doesn't work for Windows. And our original plan for MAUI compat was this. Basically, everything in Xamarin Community Toolkit should be in the MAUI compat version of it. And so my first reaction when Vlad said, should we support Windows, is like, yeah, well, we support it in Xamarin Community Toolkit, so obviously it makes sense to have it MAUI compat. But yeah, knowing that we would be missing versions then, or missing features, I should say, makes me a little nervous. But I guess my first question is, do we know if and when Ink Canvas will be supported?
Post 3.0 releases.
I wonder if that means like a month from now or a year from now.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because yeah, I'm thinking if that support's not coming for years, then okay, yeah, maybe we just have a couple features that don't work on Windows because of that, and we could throw a not supported exception for when users try to access them. But yeah, if Ink Canvas was going to be supported in a couple weeks, then I'd say let's just wait a couple weeks. So
yeah,
who should we ask about that?
Yeah, and also another question, that some features requires Windows version later than min version of .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI uses 17.763, but like Snack Bar and Toast requires 18.362. So we also may not include these features in there. It actually applies also to MAUI Community Toolkit.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question. Like, if we don't have this thing for WinUI, then we don't have a drawing view for .NET MAUI Community Toolkit at this point, for Windows at least, as well, right?
Yeah, I think it throws an exception, if I remember the PR correctly, right, Vlad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of the only thing that we can do to still bring it now for the people who do iOS and Android, but not for Windows. And there's not much we can do about this. Brandon, you said, like, who can we ask about this? I'm not really a Windows person, but is this something our friends at the Windows Community Toolkit would know? Are they closer to the fire for WinUI? Is that something we can maybe ask them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, let's
we're in Microsoft, so we'll find the right people. We just gonna poke around a little bit and see if we have a timeline for this. But yeah, so I guess this is also going to be like we're getting back to this, and I think it makes sense. Like, if we're gonna do a lot of work to make it work now, and then by the time we're finished, they're gonna say, "Hey, here's the ink canvas," and we'll did that for nothing. Then it's kind of like useless, right? So I think step one would be for us to find out, what the timeline is for that, and depending on that, we're gonna take a decision.
Makes
I can probably I can prepare the list of controls which are not ready in current WinUI version. I don't know. I see media controls. Is it related to media element which we use? I don't know, but it's probably better to prepare all features which are not currently supported and get the timeline when they will be included.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's do it for more controls that we might be dependent on. That's good thinking.
Yeah.
Go
Vlad,
ahead.
Vlad, if you just want to gather whichever controls that we need and put them in a list, and then I can go hunt down somebody on the WinUI team to figure out some timelines, and then I think that'll help us planning, because I'll say right now, this is basically our blocker for Windows support in MAUI compat. And as we can already see in the comments, like Jens mentions that as long as it works for iOS and Android, he's happy, which is great. And also, thanks for joining us. Good to see you, Jens. But Obina mentioned if it doesn't support Windows, then it's not good. So that's the tough part about maintaining these libraries, is we want to make sure everybody gets what they need.
But it's an interesting challenge. Like, .NET MAUI is being built right now, but WinUI is also being built right now. So it's kind of like catch up all the time. Who is ready? That's also like we had a lot of struggles or interesting challenges with getting .NET MAUI going for WinUI as well, because I think WinUI just released a version yesterday with which you can also enable builds through .NET Build as opposed to MS Build. So that enabled .NET MAUI to also, build the whole solution now through .NET Build instead of just .NET Build for all the platforms except for Windows. So, as long as it's just an underlying platform for us, right? And the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit is building on top of that. So, everything has to be kind of in line for us to support all the things. Okay, cool. I think we have a plan forward for this one. Brandon, you want to say something about it?
No, I think that sounds good. I think we'll stay committed to bringing Windows support to MAUI compat. We just need to figure this out first. So we need to figure out their timelines so we can adjust our timelines.
Yep.
And worst case scenario, we'll add Windows support, but the features that aren't in WinUI yet, then we'll just have to throw exceptions, and we can document that to make sure it's not a surprise. But when you think about it, how many developers are using Xamarin Community Toolkit for Windows? It's certainly got to be a smaller subset than iOS and Android. And then how many of those developers are then also using Drawing View, which is an even smaller subset. But until it comes to WinUI, our hands are kind of tied, which is a bummer.
Yep. We'll figure it out. To be continued. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, also, as we are starting migrating our controls to MAUI Community Toolkit, and maybe it will be a workaround for those who directly migrate from Xamarin to MAUI. Maybe.
All right. I think time for the next one, because we have a ton of things to still talk about and already too little time to talk about all of it. So Vlad, there's another one for you. Remove unsupported platform warnings. What's that all about? Is this connected to whatever we are talking about here?
Yeah, it's related. It's partially related to what I just talked about. And as you can see, for example, for Toast, we have such warning where the call is reached on platform which is not supported, and also it applies to like padded button, where it requires some specific version, minimum version.
Gotcha.
So
I've seen those.
yeah, the first idea was to, if we want to, what is our solution for that? If we can change the minimum version of our package, for example, for Windows, and use at least like this, but it will be different from what the .NET MAUI template give for us, and probably it's not a great solution. Otherwise, we can document it or through some specific exception, or just ignore show some message that this feature doesn't work on this platform. But
Yeah, what are the options to get rid of that? Because I know we've talked about, do we use compiler directives like if defs, or I saw somebody mentioned there's like an if Android version API out there that I think is in .NET 6, which is pretty cool. So yeah, how do we fix this?
well, I tried with define, but I still received these warnings, which was really weird for me. But and only when I checked for specific version of the platform, only after that the issue disappeared. I don't know if it was my local issue with my environment, or maybe it's something broken in Visual Studio or some analyzers. But I still received the warning after I wrap it in if Windows specific version.
So maybe there's some analyzers built into those if Android version APIs that would fix this, because yeah, the if defs will still have this error pop up because I don't think the analyzers are smart enough to recognize that. But
yeah, probably need to investigate this issue, this warning more. But
yeah, I guess Vlad, probably my biggest question is this I don't want to say just a warning, but is it is this bad where this could cause problems for our users where the toolkit might cause their code to crash?
well, as for snack bar and toast, most likely it will, through exception, that because this feature doesn't work on the specific version of Windows. Like we use notification, and in this version of Windows there were no notifications, so that is why this feature will not work, and most likely you will get exception or something like that. As for example, padded button, you can see we use some unsupported. It's unsupported on specific version of iOS and later. So most likely when user will call this code on specific version of the platform, and it will not be able to call like native code, and the user will still get an exception because this API may be obsolete or just removed.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was more curious, just yeah, how important or immediate is this? Like, is this just kind of us cleaning up, or do we actually have some known crashes that might occur in certain edge cases? It sounds like
I think it will be crashes. So
gotcha.
it's not just a warning because some developer want to add some problems to us.
Sounds like another good feature freeze project.
Yep. Got a lot of those. All right, we only got a few minutes left, and let's get Pedro some speaking time as well. So Well, this is going to be a long one. Okay. Maybe we can start talking about it a little bit. So just before we do that, which is probably going to take up the rest of our time, we also still have the C# markup extensions, which make for a little bit nicer syntax to write your UI in C#. You can use XAML if you want. That's still a thing in .NET MAUI. But some people prefer, like Brandon, if you're a little bit weird. No, I'm kidding. To do it all in C#. And the out-of-the-box experience to just write it in C# isn't great because it's just regular C# .NET syntax. So you have to new everything up, and it's nested, and it's not really readable. So that's not great. And therefore was invented the C# markup extensions, which allows you to write it in a little bit more fluent way, which is very amazing. Brandon loves it, and therefore also Brandon is doing a great job on adding new features to it. He is creating documentation for it. So those are also in the docs. So there's a lot going on there as well. If you're interested in that, please be sure to check out. It's on a separate repo for the Xamarin Community Toolkit. It was inside of the same repo. It's a separate repo now. It's just Community Toolkit /Maui.markup.
Yep.
I see Brendan. Okay.
Share the link in the chat.
Share the link in the chat. But that's still there. Actually, it's fully functional for .NET MAUI right now because, it's not as dependent on things. So it should just work for you mostly right now. If that's something that is of interest to you, please check it out. Give it a little star, open issues, help out, do amazing things. So Pedro, we are also discussing a little thing that has to do with preview flags. So maybe we want to implement new features and add a little flag to it that you have to enable it because features are not completely ready yet. Or we are talking about maybe putting something in kind of like a separate program, which is the Toolkit Labs, where we first work on the feature a little bit. Do you have something to tell about that?
Sure. So that idea came out because of the camera view. That is a feature that I am taking a look right now since we are like in code freeze and wait for release candidate 1. And the idea basically is to think in X structure on that camera view that allow users to can use the preview, the camera view, but can have more control on how they want to use the camera. For example, like let's say they want to use for image analysis and you don't want to support that, but I want to provide API that users can reuse our stuff and add these capabilities. So, but I don't have any idea how that will be in the final area. So having a feature flag or a preview package will allow us to implement these features, try that out, and give to the customer, to the devs. Then they can try that out and give us feedback, and you can change that. But I believe that the biggest pro of having that in the preview mode is that we can do breaking changes. So like, yeah, we are trying to do something here and that architecture doesn't work, but I can break it that easily to provide a new architecture that will work. And if you do the other way around, that is releasing that in our stable version, you cannot do breaking changes. So that could be a bad situation for us because we will cannot extend or make our the implementation the best way possible. So talking a little bit more, I would say that I am biased to use the the feature flag because I know there are a lot of projects that cannot use preview channels for release, and dev sometimes doesn't have time to create a branch to do previews and try that out and provide feedback. But having that as a preview flag that will allow devs to have that, okay, I have this stable package, and since it's here, why not try that out and can provide us feedback? Like if I'm not wrong, if you look to the NuGet on the Xamarin Community Toolkit, the preview is way low than the stable download numbers in terms of usage.
Oh, yeah, it's a good question because anybody that did Xamarin Forms development would probably remember there's the experimental flags, I think they called them, where you would just say enable experimental for collection view back in the day. And then you could use collection view, and that allowed the Xamarin Forms team to continue iterating over the collection view API. They could make breaking changes without us necessarily having to increment a version number or push it to a pre-release. So yeah, we're trying to figure out how to do that. Because it sounds like the .NET MAUI team wants to stay away from experimental feature flags.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of like more policy on a .NET broader level that they don't really do that. But I'm not entirely. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's not really a concept, and they're not willing to really make it a concept. So that's kind of like where the preview releases are for, right? We're part of .NET now, so .NET 7 first preview is out right now. So if new previews are coming out, that will have like all the stuff that we have in .NET MAUI as well, the newest developments. So that's kind of like our vehicle to ship preview features. If that's going to work for .NET MAUI as well, that remains to be seen, because we're kind of like an odd project where we're also dependent on what iOS is doing, what Android is doing, what a whole bunch of other SDKs are doing. So we might find ourselves at some point having to release something somewhere in between. But I don't know. We'll have to see about that. But yeah, we had it for Xamarin Forms. But it's kind of interesting what we should do here. I don't know. I don't have a really strong opinion. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say one nice thing is, we're in the community toolkit org, so we could probably get away with doing the experimental feature flags, similar to how Xamarin Forms used to do them. So I say we can probably get away with that, because who knows, somebody might yell at us for it, or we might get in trouble. But one other option is there's a new thing we're working on in the community toolkit family, is this concept of labs that Gerald mentioned, that labs won't have the same rigid process, require unit tests and samples that we do for the toolkits. Labs will be more, open up a pull request. As long as it builds, we'll merge it in, and then we'll release that as a NuGet package kind of thing. So there would be like a community toolkit.maui.labs that would have kind of our experimental things in it. So maybe that's where we could put camera view, media element, things like that, what probably will take a couple iterations to get right. Now, is that the best option? Because now that code lives in the labs repo instead of the MAUI toolkit repo. Maybe. But I also don't know when labs will be ready. Michael Hawker on the Windows Community Toolkit team is leading that, and we might not have that for a couple months, which, I mean, we're going into a feature freeze now, so we can't really add features for a couple months, but I don't want 2023 to be rolling around and we're still waiting on labs, which means we're still waiting on camera view. That's the only concern I have with using labs, is it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. Lots of things to think about here. So if you're watching this and you have opinions about it, what you prefer, then let us know. I don't think we're going to decide it right here, right now, because we have a little bit more discussion and thinking to do, I guess. And also, we're already 3 minutes over time, so we really have to cut things short here. Thank you all so much for being here, my lovely team members on this community toolkit thing. Thank you all the watchers for the input, all the future watchers on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, do all the things that you are hearing from all the creators on YouTube that you should do. And we'll hopefully see you next month with more updates. A GA version, maybe? I don't know. So yeah, stay tuned.
Everybody.